This is Sarah, Painter Creator here. Welcome. We're just doing a series on our Zoom paint togethers, which is sort of a virtual holiday around the world, and we've been to Scotland and we've been to the Netherlands, we've been to Switzerland, we've been to Japan, and now we're going to New Zealand. And obviously with me being in the United Kingdom, this means that this sort of time zone is quite difficult for me to connect with people who live there. So I'm doing some paints on Zoom. If you'd like to join us on our Zoom paint togethers, please do get in touch. They're free at the point of access, and we just do ask, if you've got the finances available, to occasionally drop me a coffee to help with the cost of it all. I'm a disabled artist living in the United Kingdom and living off my ill health pension, so if you can help with that, that's really kind, and it keeps giving back. So we're just going to do this little image of some birds, some waders on this beautiful turquoise sea, which is the sea over there, and some of these rocks, using our little rock card technique. I'm going to just paint these birds in afterwards. They've got beautiful bright red beaks and some pinky red legs, which are gorgeous. I'm not painting this land, I'm just going to paint the sea, and I'm going to go for some gouache and splashes for that lovely water that's coming in, and just have a bit of fun. Oops, I better plug it in. So to start off with, I'm going to wet the water area with just clean water. I'm going to try and go around that bird shape. And up to the edge of those rocks. Just clean water. So I'm trying to get enough water on the page that lets me play with some colours, but I don't want it to be running wet, but I do want it to be movable. So there's a fair amount of water on there, just checking that we're all covered. So I'm just picking up some colours off my palette. I'm using my Cotman watercolour set, and I've got some additional ones, but just basically pick up your favourites and see what happens, and we're just going to have fun mixing in some different blues and turquoises and phthalo, and getting some nice colours going. Just going to add a little bit of red light into my phthalo blue just to make it a bit more turquoisey. So it's quite thick. Just going to drop a little bit of ultramarine in there as well for a different blue, but that sort of beautiful richness of the water around. So just to start with, I'm just going to paint around this bird. Not bothered about the edges of my rocks, but this bird I could do with keeping some sense of the bird being there. Okay, so now the fun bit. I'm just going to spritz with my little mister spray, and I'm just going to tilt some water into there and just let it mix on the paper. So that's my big spritzer bottle. just getting some water onto the paper where I've not got any paint. I'm just going to help move it around with my paintbrush, but I'm wanting really the paint to just do its thing. So I'm just painting around that sort of rock area. Adding a little bit. Just spritz in a bit more water and keep tilting. So as long as you play, you get some lovely colours mixing on your palette, on your paper, sorry, without a lot of. So I've now put it flat. Let me just move it back up here, sorry. Now put it flat so that it's got a bit more stability. I'm just going to go in while it's wet and fill these little bits of gaps that I want filling up to the edge within there. Okay, that was nice and fun. So you can do that as much or as little as you want. Let it dry naturally, and then that sort of brings in its own excitement with it. Just to get things started, I'm going to spritz my little spritzer bottle into the area where the gouache is going to go, and I'm just going to tilt that way. Just to get a bit of movement. Okay, so mop up any excess. Paper towel. Trying to keep my bird dry. Mop that up. And we've already got that sort of sense of first movement, which is really lovely. So whilst it's damp, I'm going to drop in some of my gouache. Gouache is an opaque water-based colour. Let me just pick out these little bits. So straight from the tube. If you haven't got gouache, use some Dr. Martens, and it's just the background splash. And I want it to be quite expressive, so I'm just adding a bit. And again, I'm just going to put some blobs in and see what happens, really. I love painting like this. Find out what happens. So bit more water. Oh, there we go. This will all soften down. But it wants to look like a wave's just sort of hit it. Maybe we'll have another splash there. go. So I don't want this gouache on my arm, so I'm going to wipe that, and I'm going to wipe it off here. And I'm just going to soak up using a paper towel that big puddle at the bottom, but I'm now going to let that dry as naturally as I can because I quite like it. But I will be back with my gouache or my Dr. Martens. They both do different things. So just a thirsty brush to soak up those puddles, because otherwise you'll end up with a big run back and you don't want that. But that already looks really beautiful and expressive. So I'm going to wash my hands. So here we are, we're dry. As you can see, that gouache has gone into the back of that sort of water, but those different colours in the water I think really make it stand out, and it will stand out even more as we go to do the next. So now we're going to paint our big rocks, and I will be using my little plastic card. You could use, let me just find this one. So you could use a palette knife instead of your plastic card, doing exactly the same thing, scraping sideways using the edge. I'll show you using both, just so you're aware. So fresh water, I am going to end up painting over, I think, this bird in the middle. We'll see. Fresh water, I'm just going to try and go around it as much as I can. Makes life a bit easier. So clean water into all of that rocky area. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to put some fairly thick burnt, I might as well put it into that blue, burnt sienna, because that's one of the colours I can see in here. Nice. I'm going to put some raw sienna in as well. Another nice earthy tone. And it's important to keep this moist and moving as much as you can. And then thinking about the earthy tones, so I'm going to put some burnt umber in. That's quite a nice mid-tone. It'll sit against that black quite nicely. And then there's quite a lot of grey colours, so I'm going to put a little bit of cerulean blue into here, which will make a bit of a bluey grey tone. Just wanting different tones and lightnesses, a bit more blue maybe into there. going to put a little bit of that raw umber into that mix. And then I'm just going to drop some Payne's Grey into there. So I'm just going to add a little bit of brown into there as well, straight from the palette. A little bit of sepia. I'm trying to go around that bird. A bit more Payne's Grey. Keeping it a spritz because I want it to stay wet and workable. It's always a bit of a balancing act. So you've got lots of dark, rich dark tones. I'm going to add a little bit of indigo and Payne's Grey together. Some really thick darks into this top section here and into some of this foreground. I'm also going to add some Mars Black into here. Mars Black, Lamp Black, they're both granulating colours, so we can add that in as a dark. Okay, so I've got lots of dark colours on there. Just going to spritz this front end, keep it going, and then we're going to take our card or our palette knife. I'm just going to have to lift this flat. So I'm going to work across and just lift out some textures. So thinking about where the light side is, where I want the texture of the rock to go. Or I could just use so do one and then move on to the next, all within the direction that you're after. And just building that sort of sense of a group of rocks. If you're finding that you can't scrape away, just re-wet it with your spritzer bottle. keep turning. That's a bit dry. I'm just going to spritz that. That little mist bottle is worth its weight in gold. And the different colours just let you create. Oops, I've got a bit of a, that's fine, I'll cover that with the gouache later on. But they just let you create different textures and different rocks and won't be exactly like the rocks that are on the paint on the photograph, but they will have rock texture without all the angst of having to create individual rocks, because I haven't got the energy for that, and I doubt you have either. And it's a great little technique. So go back into your little palette knife. Little bits of edges. Spritz this corner, rest a minute. Mop that up, and there we go. We have a set of rocks. Nice way of doing it, using either our palette knife or our plastic card. And we're going to give that a dry in a minute once it's settled. If you want the darts to be darker, then you can drop them in while it's wet. So just drop in a bit more dark around some areas just to get a bit more texture, but it has to be while it's wet, otherwise you'll end up with just hard lines all over and they'll look a bit odd. But a good way, if you've got a line and you want to just sort of break it up while it's damp like this, you can work into it a little bit. So once you're happy with it, that's when we put this on pause and we give it a dry. Okay, welcome back. I've dried it with a hairdryer. It's not totally dry, it's dry enough for me to work in. And I'm going to just use my little, what is it, #1 brush, #1 round, and I'm just taking some black, and I'm just going to add in a little bit of purple, because black by itself I don't like, and I just want that sort of highlight, particularly on the birds. So it's quite thick paint, because I need it to cover some of these imperfections. I'm just going to add a little bit of water into that, and you'll see the purple come out. And we've done quite well at protecting the birds. I've left that little highlight of white as you wanted, and you could have masked out the birds and it would have been a bit easier, but I haven't. So I'm just going to go back in with just black. So this is lamp black, which is a nice colour, and I'm just going to darken now the chest and the head. And that under the wing area. There we go. So that's the first one. I might put a bit of that dark under that bottom of the, there we go. So I've tried to sort of have a bit of variation on the tone. So with this one up here, I'm just going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue in, just to keep it a little bit slightly different. But same again. Some little tufty bits which I want to put on at the back. This chap or chapess. So again, it's quite watered down, probably coffee rather than cream, for those of you that like that sort of analogies. Bit of water. Create a little bit of a highlight there where we can. So you get this sort of purple tone sitting nicely. I'm just going to run a little bit of water into this one, around his wing area and the top of the head, and that little watermark will just help define that bird. So I'm ready for the beak. So I'm going to use some New Gamboge yellow and some Cerulean Scarlet together, a bright reddy orange colour, because these beaks are quite iconic, and they are and there's a little red eye in this one, and this one is going down a little bit. But because they're quite bright against this dark, they sit quite nicely, and I'm just going to use the same colour for the legs. If your darks aren't as dark as mine, you could maybe mix these legs a little bit pinker, and because they are more pink rather than red in reality, but my darks are quite dark, so I want them, especially this one, to sort of be there, otherwise it looks like it's not got any legs. I might just add a little bit of pink into this mix, rose pink, just for this one. Okay, so now is the time to cover all of this up until we get our white gouache out. So some clean paper towels. I'm probably going to need 3, no, maybe 2. So I need to make sure that that's there. Just a minute, I'm going to cover. I'm going to do a bit of a jiggery pokery with my paper towel. I'm cutting it because I want the bird to be covered, but I don't want the edge of the cliff to be covered, and I don't really want too much above the bird to be covered. So I'm just doing a bit of space. There we go. And then this one should be a bit easier because we can just do that, and we're on. So my gouache time again, or my Dr. Martens white. I'll use my Dr. Martens white for this one. So clean water, straight into my Dr. Martens white, give it a good mix up with my little mop brush, and splash away. So the Dr. Martens white is really good at sort of staying on the surface. That's why it's bleed proof. So I'm now going to just adjust my mask. Because I do want going to cover those blobs that I did before by accident. As you can see, I do get covered in it, as do most of my other things, but it's fun. I've seen people use toothbrushes and all sorts of things to help with the splatter. However you find your splatter the best, then I suggest that's what you use. But it's good fun. And I've got one little run there from a little bit that came back, so I just lift that off. And yes, I'm wearing it, but it's been nice doing. So I can do the same here with this bit. Just lift it off. You get a really nice feel for these two having a bit of a sunny day out, really. So I'm just going to let that dry naturally, wash my hands, take the tape off and call it a day. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you're going to give it a try. If you have, let me know, see how you've gone, and just relax and have fun. That's what it is, it's a bit of fun. So have a nice day, folks, and if you want to join the Zoom, let me know.